Hello, everyone. It's good to be here. My name is Hector Sandoval. I'm with Starweaver, Head of Strategy, and I'm going to be hosting the last of our 4 sessions for today's virtual event on AI and professional education. I will have a group of panelist friends with whom I have been working closely for the past couple of years in creating some amazing online content. And the theme of this session is about from months to minutes, how AI is rewriting the rules of content creation. Now, obviously, we're going to be addressing the issue of compression, the issue of automating workflows, but I will be challenging my colleagues here to go beyond that and speak a little bit about their experiences. All of them are professional educators for enterprises, universities, and the online platforms. So I think we're missing one of them right now. And please, I will ask my colleagues in the back room to see if Mr. Temelis can join us or if he's having any technical difficulties. Just from some housekeeping perspective, the session is timed for about 45 minutes, but we'll make sure that we leave the last few minutes for some questions that we may get from the public. Okay? So with that in mind, let me introduce Mr. Phil Gold. Phil is a seasoned, experienced learning and development, as well as a communications expert who has spent many decades working in the field, including 20 years as a training specialist for Nike, where he delivered
15 years at Nike.
Okay, well, I was giving you the benefit of an extra few years for retirement benefits if you. And Phil is also a prolific content creator. He's got some amazing courses across different platforms, including LinkedIn Learning and Coursera, among others. And what's interesting about Phil's courses is that they have really tested the importance of great storytelling, because some of these courses, for example, managing virtual teams, have already well over 350,000 enrollments of people that are just loving that content and rating that content highly. So Phil and I have worked together in a few projects, and I will let him, once we start rolling the questions, add anything on his background if he chooses to. We also have Dr. Eric Zackrison. Eric is an entrepreneur. He is an educator, a university professor at the UC University at Santa Barbara. He is also a management consultant and also a content creator. So I had the privilege of meeting Eric a few years ago when we both were discussing the need for creating amazing content, and Starweaver provided both of us the opportunity to do that. And since then, I think, Eric, you have created, I can't even count down the number of courses, but it would be safe to say at least like 300 or 400 hours of
really,
right?
Yeah, likely. Yeah.
Oh, okay. We're supposed to have another panelist join, but I'll just get the ball rolling here if you don't mind, guys.
Please.
To keep the information flowing. So I think most of us have been using one form or another of AI in its current version for the last couple of years, 3 years to be exact. But I think that in the last 6 months, there was like a seismic change in the whole thing of AI. And I think it had to do with the fact that, like, if you went for the holidays in December and you came back in January, there were new things happening in the large language models, namely the agentic features of things like Claude Cowork, Claude Code, Codex, etc. So with that in mind, knowing that this is a technology that's changing so fast, let me start the questions with you, Phil. Can you name a specific interaction with AI in your content creation practice over the last 6 months that really amazed you, that has made a significant improvement in your workflow that you can share with us and the public?
Well, there's actually been a couple of different things that have happened over the last 6 months. 6 months is probably an accurate time frame. I have been increasingly able to use AI tools to help guide me, not to create content, but to validate content, to get feedback on content, and to convert content is another thing. I mean, I have a book that I want to convert into a course. And using AI tools, mostly ChatGPT, because that's the one that I'm the most familiar with and the most comfortable with, I've been able to move this very rapidly into a real robust script for a full course. And I've had the opportunity to train my chat GPT so that it knows who I am and knows how I talk, and but we have conversations about things, which is the part that I really like. It's not just ChatGPT, give me this. It's ChatGPT, here's what I've got. This is what I want to do with it. Here's the format I want to have it show up in. Make me some suggestions, and then let's put some drafts together. So it's not just a drop it in the AI and let the AI do it. I know people who are doing that, and their content sucks. They're creating stuff very, very quickly, and it's very, very bad. But AI used properly is a great tool, and it does absolutely make things go a lot quicker. And I think the resulting content is a lot stronger for the use of having this constant back and forth feedback. I'll save my second thing for later.
Thank you, Phil. Let me welcome our third panelist of today, Mr. Tom Temelis. Tom is a educator in the Schulich Business School at York University in Toronto. He's also an expert in 3 specific areas that I really want to come back to and discuss as a group, because he teaches, he consults, and he drives a lot of conversations around data science, cybersecurity, and generative AI. So when you put all that together, I think it's a very interesting cocktail to talk about in terms of implications for education. And Tom is also one of the instructors that has partnered with Starweaver to create amazing content. We have been working together as well. So Tom, welcome. And the first question that I was asking the panel was, what in the last 6 months, because we all feel that the capabilities of AI have changed dramatically over these past 6 months. So let me ask you, since you just joined, and then we'll have Eric also chime in at the end. What is your most recent experience where you have seen a definite, significant change when you're using AI for creating educational content? Something that you didn't experience before, and you said, wow, I didn't expect this to happen.
I think the greatest thing that I have seen so far is the proliferation of these different AI solutions that are more specific now towards, I want to say, in terms of occupation. And what we've seen is or what I've witnessed is a hyper-personalization of all these different AI solutions, all these products and agents. Like, we're no longer, for example, talking about simply AI agents can do A, B, and C. We're no longer talking about it now from a business setting. Now we're starting to look at this now from a learning perspective. And this is something too, I think, that in the future, we're going to see a greater, I want to say, emphasis on this really hyper personalization of a lifelong learning journey. I think that the day's going to come, I think, where we're going to finish school even as teenagers or young adults, and we're going to have some kind of AI agent, some kind of AI solution or tool that's going to guide us throughout our lives in terms of education, skill development, employment, and so on. Maybe I'm thinking way ahead of myself here, but that's the biggest thing I'm seeing right now. We're seeing just such a proliferation of all these different AI products and such out there. It's insane, actually, what's been happening.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. And Eric, have you been experimenting? Let me ask you, for example, with agents, because everybody's also talking about how you can now design and train agents to do very specific tasks. So what's your experience with that?
I don't do that a lot yet. I've been playing with it. I downloaded Claude for my desktop, and I've been kind of giving it some things to do on the back end. Not in that real in depth yet. I'm being consciously really careful with it. I actually just kind of had an epiphany with kind of my writing. If we go back to the question you were asking a minute ago, that I'd realized that I'd been turning over too much control, and rather than it being a writing partner, it was kind of co-author, and realized it. So my procedure, and it sped me up a lot, right? I generate ideas, use AI, usually Claude, to kind of categorize those ideas, and then I'll draft, and then I'll turn it over and make this more effective, more persuasive, whatever. And I realized that I'd been doing that to the point that I'd been losing voice. It happened because I'm working on a new textbook that they're like, you can't use generative AI. And I sat down at the computer and I was like, man, I've lost my edge on being able to write. And so I've actually stepped back a little bit in that ways. But where I have found it amazing is I'm using it, like, one of the classes I teach is strategy. And so we're talking about, actually even better, I'm doing a leadership class right now. And we had a decision-making section, and I just had Claude, I need 8 like realistic business scenarios to analyze decision-making. So I can have 8 groups do it, which that's not something I want to do that fast. And they were great. And I think those kind of things, I think Agentic is going to be able to start, like, I can ask it to kind of go through and find, like, here's my activities, what are better activities, but I haven't played with that much yet.
So it would be fair to say that the common denominator across all of our experiences with these AI tools right now, and as again, educators, content creators, instructors, whatever you want to call us, is that we enjoy the fact that we can delegate some tasks, but we're always in control. We drive the car. We're the ones who are putting together the strategy behind it. Now, if I were to tell you that in the last few hours that this event has been going on, we've had 2 great keynote speeches from people, a very senior leader at Coursera, former CHRO at LinkedIn Learning, and we've had 3 other sessions where people have been talking about AI in education with different dimensions. And if we were to create a word cloud out of all those sessions, the one word that's coming across as the big one is skills. Everybody's talking about skills, upskilling, reskilling. Let's train people for skills. Now, Eric, I'm going to turn it over to you right now because I had an epiphany myself yesterday, which is I read a slide from the University College London where Paul was participating in a panel. And the basic phrase was, the over-reliance of AI has the potential to degrade your critical thinking. And I know
100%.
that critical thinking is one of those skills that you teach, and it's in your wheelhouse. So tell me, when you're interacting with your alumni and your stakeholders, whether it's management consulting clients or in other educational fields, what is your reaction to them asking you, is my critical thinking at risk? Is this going to boost my critical thinking? What is your opinion about that in terms of AI?
It's a 100% risk, right? And we know that the research coming out is very, very clear that AI use is dumbing people down, right? Additionally, if we are overusing AI, like if we're turning over all of our, like low-level work to AI, how are people going to learn to be kind of the mid-level? And then where do the next experts come from? And so I talk about it a lot. And you can, the trick thing is you can use AI to increase your critical thinking, right? You can train. I've got my Claude now. I was like, if I ask, like push back on me on these things, like challenge me. And so you can use it in that way. But the trick is, and this is where it gets problematic. Like when AI, like early chat, right? The first couple of versions of ChatGPT, it would spit out stuff. We'd be like, clearly this is BS. Right? Clearly this is, and so we critically analyze it. But AI is getting so good. And to Phil's point, right? It knows our voice, right? It knows what we write. And we know that psychologically, if we get something that looks like what we would write, psychologically, we don't look at it as closely, but that's exactly when we should. And so that's a lot of what I talk about. And it's challenging though, right? Because we get in a hurry. We're being pushed by our employers to be more efficient, like AI should be making you. And so we're getting stuff that looks good and we're in a hurry. And the risk is that we just go past it, but that's exactly when we should be digging into it more.
I'm sure Phil and Tom, you got an opinion about critical thinking, but let me push the envelope a little further for you, Phil. So when I'm thinking also about skills, right, and the inherent qualities of human beings, because with AI, the conversation is always about whether it will replace A, B, C, and D, or it will augment X, Y, Z, and D, right? So in this case, I know, Phil, you have a creative side to you. You're a very sensitive fellow, and you have been dabbling in, music and songwriting. You have authored books. So let me ask you, if the goal for educators like us is to help people become more AI fluent, but not lose any of these characteristics, in addition to honing critical thinking, what other inherent human skills would you teach people so that they can use AI effectively, like self-awareness and morality and whatnot?
Yeah, ethics, morality, self-awareness, all those soft skills that people used to need, in business, communications, conflict resolution, critical thinking, analysis, developing strategy. Guess what? You still need all those tools. The need for those have not gone away. Those are the beginning part of many AI-driven interactions. As we were discussing amongst ourselves the other day, AI can be used to help teach those skills, but those skills, those human skills, are still absolutely hypercritical. The need for effective communication and critical thinking is never going to go away.
And I think that some people may not agree entirely with the following statement that I'm going to make, but I think, and we discussed this earlier, that, in order to be able to attain a certain level of mastery of said skills, you need to go through friction. You need to go through failure, trial and error, mistakes. So, Tom, what other comments would you have to the issue of, yes, there's a whole technological aspect to AI, but we're revealing that maybe there is an opportunity for a new way of thinking about technology with AI. And what is your opinion about the opportunities for AI being a different kind of technology that helps us be more human and also more effective in our productive professional lives?
Yeah, really, this is music to my ears, what I've been hearing from Eric and Phil. And I think I'm gonna kind of piggyback that a little bit before going to what you were saying, Hector, is this. Let's think about that whole critical thinking and the development of skills, and even about having AI assist us in terms of our skills development. It all starts, and this may be a bit, I'm going off kilter here, but it all starts as children. When we're kids, when we're in the school systems, that's where we're fundamentally taught those soft skills, the ability to communicate, the ability to manage, to lead, to cope, to deal with things. All that starts at the school level. And once you develop in your formative years, those skills, those abilities, the soft skills we call it, or transferable skills, that's going to take us for the rest of our lives. And having AI involved now, even going back now to, I want to say to a younger age, draws in itself opportunities, but also a lot of dangers, because we're not teaching, in some cases, the younger generations of how to do things. And on top of that, that's another issue that I think Phil and Eric both raised about companies and businesses, is the fact that we are not allowing or giving younger generations or younger adults an opportunity to really develop themselves, because we're thinking that AI is just as capable as a person. Well, we have to remember that AI is simply generated information. It comes from a source. It comes from somewhere out there. Whether it's accurate or not, that's open to debate. But these are all fundamental issues we're dealing with. And I guess, Hector, maybe I'm going again a bit off there, but in the end, though, this is something that for all educators, doesn't matter whether you're an elementary school teacher, to a professor, to a corporate trainer, these are now questions I think everybody out there is asking themselves, right? How am I going to balance it?
Yeah, and we should all be promoting that kind of discourse anyway. Let me keep you here, Tom, for a little bit more, because here's another question that I had. Now, we've been speaking about the use of AI, the advantages of AI, the need for AI on an individual user level. But all of us have been engaged in large enterprise engagements where you have to train hundreds, if not thousands of people, and sometimes even tens of thousands of people across the planet with different cultural, settings and ideas and upbringings and whatnot. My question is more about that cocktail of technology knowledge that you have across data science, data analysis, cybersecurity, and Gen AI. So if we were to try to scale large training programs for AI fluency and very specific use cases across different entities, and say, just a random number, we want to train 10,000 people in the next semester so that by the end of that, these outcomes are achieved, these skills are attained. In your opinion, are companies aware of all the technicalities that are involved in layering up the AI part to the existing technology stacks? Are people aware of the issues related to data protection and cybersecurity? What's been your experience in the last few months? Are people asking you those questions?
Yes. In a short word, yes. Everybody's been asking me questions about this, and I've had many great discussions with a lot of really, really intelligent, far smarter than me, actually, colleagues in those very discussions. I don't think a lot of companies are, and I don't mean that in a bad way. I just mean I think they're slowly beginning to understand and grasp the sheer challenges of going through now an entire reskilling or upskilling of an entire workforce. We're talking here generational change, the change that we haven't seen since the Industrial Revolution, to be honest. I mean, just the sheer like speed of this. And I think part of the problem here is this, and I mean we did talk about this before, is that we have to understand that for AI to function properly, in order for people to learn, in order for any kind of fluency or literacy, we have to get back to the basics, right? And we have to get back to the quality of the data that we have, the quality of the content that we have. We have to ensure that the right experts are there too. And you have to remember, AI is not replacing us as experts. That's just not possible. It probably won't be possible for the foreseeable future. And so what the corporates have to do, the head offices and the various institutions and organizations out there, what they need to do is they got to take a good, cold, hard look at their organization and what is going to be the next 3 to 5 years, and really look at this from a layered perspective, from a functional perspective, from an end-to-end perspective, which is from digital literacy to AI fluency, how to secure all this, how to privatize it. And all that is going to create the skills of the future. And from that extension, I'm going to say this to everyone here, whoever's going to listen to this, is this. The $1 trillion question we're going to ask ourselves is this: where are those jobs going to land? Where in the world? That is going to be the fundamental thing. Whoever can master that, whoever can really put that together, is going to dominate economics for years to come.
And we haven't even touched the, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to see if I can follow up on that. I think to Tom's point, 100%. I think organizations, recognize there's a technological challenge, right? I don't think they know how to solve it yet, but I think where the bigger disconnect is they're not seeing it as an organizational change problem. They're seeing it as technology, not as a people issue. And I think that's where I'm seeing a lot of friction, is that in the upskilling of people, they're forgetting that people are like, wait a minute, I'm worried. Am I going to still have a job after you do this? Like what, what's my relationships with work, with people? And I think that's one of the biggest pieces that I see missing a lot, is that org change piece.
I wanted to spend a little bit more time. I want to spend a little bit more time talking about this, only because I got 2 data points, if you will. So I was listening to a podcast where they were discussing the construction of these gigantic data centers, which are necessary to provide all the compute power for these AI models to be trained and to be deployed. And also, apparently the CTO from Uber had to disclose that on the first quarter of this year, he exhausted his entire AI budget for 2026, meaning that the usage of this technology also carries a huge financial, let me call it risk, if not properly designed and managed. But I guess that would be talking about a little bit of stuff away from education. Let me bring it back to the education piece. So Phil, and anybody, please chime in. But specifically for somebody like Phil and all of us who have a unique style, a unique voice, again, I consider you guys more than educators. I think that the reason why you connect so well, all of you, with your learner bases, and that's why you have hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of you have people subscribing to your courses, because you are master storytellers. And storytelling is like ingrained in the DNA of human beings, right? Now, if the technology today provides you, Phil or Eric or Tom, the opportunity to create your own avatar to the exact likeness, every little hair, every little, feature that you have, the tone of voice, your mannerisms, and that could be also used as a use case of, okay, I am compressing the creation of a course, what normally would have taken me 90 days or 120 days to create a pretty good 2-3 hour course. I can do it now in a couple of weeks just because my avatar is going to take all the heavy lifting of the recording. So entering into the realm of ethics and responsible use of AI, Phil and Eric and Tom, what say you about, are we going to see your avatar coming up anytime soon?
I think you probably am going to see an avatar of me in the not too distant future, but I will have written the script.
Of course, yeah.
I mean,
Well, you control the entire thing, right?
Yeah, I will have written the script. I will tell the avatar, what to say, when to say it. The interspersed slides will all be of my design, but AI will have the opportunity to create this stuff faster and more seamlessly then I can do it. The hard work in putting a class together and putting a full course together, yes, writing the script and designing the course is one thing, but all that post-production stuff,
Yeah.
that's why, I've done a lot of work with LinkedIn and I've done a lot of work with Starweaver, and, both places have been invaluable in terms of taking my raw material and making it look great. I don't necessarily have those skills to make it look great. I don't necessarily have the time to spend on it. I don't want to have to invest in a whole bunch of new tools and learn all those tools. So if I can use AI to do that for me, I'm going to. And that's a place where it's going to be super, super valuable.
So I'll take the other view on that. I have no interest in that at all. I was in a conversation with a group of content creators a couple of weeks ago, where we have some of our courses. I can't remember the name of the tool, and this part of it I think is cool, because I think it's an accessibility thing where it takes and basically makes it look like I'm speaking Arabic and Spanish and French and everything else, matches them out. That, I think, because of it's an access thing, I'm fine with. But we had a conversation about how far then is it going to be until we can just be replicated. And I think for me, the line is before that. I think we start losing rights to our own identity, letting that happen. I acknowledge Phil's point. That end is, I don't know how to do that end part either. But I think that's a risky position, I think, from my perspective.
It's risky, and I'm going to take a balanced approach to this, like to the spectrums here, is that certainly I think the whole avatar thing, or the digital worker or digital assistant, or your digital clone really is already kind of appearing. And surprisingly, or maybe not so surprisingly, it's on Anthropic. If you look at Claude, for example, we look at the entire ecosystem of Claude. You can create your own code. You can create your own skills. That's key, right? You can write your own skills. So basically, you're creating, in a sense, your digital avatar. You can also provide access through these Gen AI platforms now to your computer. So in a way, that's slowly encroaching upon our lives. But now I'm going to look at it from Eric's perspective, and we got to look at the morals and the ethics of this. Right? How about the security of all this? How about the privacy? Right? If we forfeit our individualism or our ability to be independent or autonomous, then who owns that? Who's going to own the data from that? Right? Because one of the big things right now that's separating us from machines, obviously, and you're going to be surprised about this, is the fact that machines don't know anything. Right? We had to teach the machines every single little thing. Ironically, we are still training these said machines to do everything we wanted to do in the first place. But as Eric states, well, when does that stop? Where's the boundary, right? Is there going to be a boundary? And that's another big question we have to ask ourselves, not just as individuals, and maybe we're going a bit more into the philosophical part, but even into education as well. Does that mean we're going to outsource our learning, our critical thinking, our creativity to a avatar?
Yeah, let me bring it to another dimension. I feel, let me just, because if I don't say this, I think I'm gonna explode. So I've been following a guy in one of the social media. I've been following a guy in a social media platform where we all convene, and I've seen a lot of comments and posts from people who are instructional designers or learning scientists or learning and development experts, or especially in companies, right? And they're trying to defend the fact that AI can't replace those skills and those professions. Again, the argument that it should help, it should augment, it should enhance, it should innovate, but not replace. And every time that somebody makes that point, the guy that I'm referring to, whose name I won't say, always comes back with the same answer. He says, look, you guys are fooling yourselves. Companies only train people for two reasons: to not get sued and to not get fined. It's all about compliance. Okay. Now, I think that's a very reductionist view of what training is for, because I've been trained in many things that don't have to do with compliance, but somehow. So let me ask you this. How can this new technology provide an opportunity to make a better case for the entire HR function in organizations? Because I also have experience after 30 years working in corporate worlds that HR is always kind of pushed aside from the strategy, from the conversation about what's the real driver of success in a company. And I think this technology may open that door a little bit more to say, if people are trained properly, yes, they will meet compliance goals and they will meet regulatory goals, but also, again, this idea that their minds will be also opening up to be better thinkers and more empathetic individuals. So, Phil, do you want to take that one as a comment?
Well, yes, but I want to start by saying learning is not an HR function. Okay. HR has a role in business, but their role is not developing strategy. Their role is implementing strategy. Their role is not developing training. It is helping employees access training. So,
But let me just challenge you there. But can we agree at least that HR should be the advocate for how the people side of the business needs to also be taken into consideration together with the commercial part, the financial part, the operational part? So the
yes,
advocate,
Yeah.
HR should be the ad of the people. Unfortunately, in the real world, they very seldom are. HR
hence this
is
point. Can AI
yeah.
help us, help the advocates of the people?
Yeah,
that's
Sorry.
going to depend on the corporate culture, and it's going to depend on the leadership of the company.
Yeah.
If the leadership is willing to empower HR to act as advocates, to act as the people who can make this happen, yes, then it'll happen. But honestly, I don't know that that's gonna happen.
Yeah.
I mean,
We live in the real world.
The real world, I don't know.
agree. No, I agree with Phil. Like, it's one thing conceptually to say we need human resources to take precedent or take a charge or move things forward. It's another for the practical realities of a company to be run. But the thing is, and I do teach, by the way, human resources in AI at a local college here. And when I do teach people there is that human resources could hopefully take some kind of charge, some kind of, I want to say, direction in how things are planned, particularly in workforce planning, for example, right? Being able to figure out, okay, what kind of employees or people do we need to hire? Or if we don't want to hire, what do we need to train those employees? But to Phil's point, it's easier said than done, right? Conceptually, you want that to happen. Ideally, you want that to happen. My wife's in HR too, so I'm not saying this out of bias or anything like that. I'm saying it in an objective sense. But there are in itself challenges, and it depends on the way the company's run.
Yeah, in the best of all possible worlds, HR is sitting at the table when decisions are being made about workplace planning, about all of these different factors. But what usually happens is somebody tosses it over the wall and says, implement it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this ties into a question from the audience. Let me share this with you guys. I'll be sharing this question in two parts, but the first part is, I've been coaching teachers on how to use AI for a couple of years, how to convince them that AI can be a good right hand, because I'm sensing rejection, exactly like when mobile phones came up or the internet appeared. So how would you advise this person on strategies to mitigate resistance and rejection of a new technology that could be potentially very beneficial for the educators of the world? Anyway.
I'll touch on that a little bit. I'm seeing the same thing as like, there's some that are like, I'm not touching it at all. Some that are completely overusing it. Actually, my son came to me yesterday and was saying apparently the French teacher at his high school is completely using AI even for exams, and students keep coming up and going, this is wrong. Like, what's with this? And she's like, oh yeah, that's wrong. Ignore that. Right. And so it's a matter of training, just like with anything else. And so I'll just go back to the change thing, right? That you have to let people know that it's an augmentation, not a replacement, right? If people think it's a replacement, they're going to push back and resist it. If we can create a sense that it's augmentation and show how it can support them, then they're more likely to adapt to it and adjust to it and start using it. But that's where the rub's going to be, right? Yes. And so certainly as use cases start coming up and as people test it, but always building in, that human in the mix, that's the culture that has to be developed in any educational setting to make it safe to use, and embrace. They're also seeing some where people are like, yes, use it. And then when they use it, people are like, oh, that was AI. That's not that good. Right. And so there's that tension people have to work with as well. It's like they're told to use AI, but when they use it, they're questioned. And so those things have to be adjusted.
Yeah, it's a classic.
Go ahead. Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say it's a classic transition management scenario. Really,
Yeah, 100%.
I mean, you've got to address people's fears. You've got to show them what's in it for them. You've got to show them how it's going to benefit them.
Yeah, I agree.
And there will always be people who will resist change. There are ways around that, but it's a process, and it's sometimes a slow process. For an immediate answer to this person, I would say just you're probably going to have to address the naysayers more or less individually. And you're going to have to sit with them and say, okay, look, let's do this. See how much better this is. See that this made your life easier. No, it doesn't mean you're going to be replaced. Yes, you do have to learn new things. Yes, it's different. Just like using a cell phone, just like using a typewriter when those were new. Any new technology is going to have to go through this transition phase.
Yeah. Another thing I often encounter in these posts and the comments that follow the posting of information from this particular group of people, because they're really invested in, trying to protect, their profession. And at the same time, they basically want to give the AI technology an opportunity, right? Yeah. But one of the things that I also notice in those comments is, for example, the issue of, if you have great writing skills, you can dominate the technology. If you have good critical thinking, that technology is going to be a cinch to use. Oh, if you have creativity. But that's assuming that everybody is at their top level. And my experience is that people are not at their top level until they attain a certain level of experience, not just professionally, but in life, if I may be honest, right? Again, going back to the friction and climbing the rungs of that ladder that are necessary for you to say, I got the calluses in my hand to prove it. And now I can say, after 30 years of professional writing or public speaking or being used to creating papers from scratch and just doing the analysis myself, now the technology feels like it's really like a third hand or an extra eye. But that assumes that everybody has to get to that level in, let's call it, core human skills, right? So I think that there's still a lot of teaching to do, if you will, at least coaching, mentoring. But that's another example of where technology like this is proving. And in a little bit after this session, we're going to have 4 demonstrations of platforms and tools that are taking AI in education further. And if you stick around, one of them will actually feature a role-play simulation-based platform technology that mimics this idea that I can teach you by watching a video, but I can teach you by letting you do things. You learn by doing. Okay. So have you guys experimented with using your AI companions as a, challenger, a mentor, a tutor of some sort, just for your own use?
I do that a little bit for myself in that I make my AI challenge me some. But one way that I am using it in the classroom, interestingly enough, is I've got for all of my classes, I create a bot specifically for that class. So I upload the readings and the slides and the syllabus. And so my students can use it to practice, to study for their exams. Instead, if they want to know when an assignment is due, instead of emailing me, they can ask it. And I'm finding students are really engaging in that really well. But I don't give it like a particular voice per se. I don't like kind of train it to have a certain voice. It's really just content. So that's one way I'm seeing that being used.
See, I think what we're witnessing here, and I mean, all of us being educators, is that we're seeing such a such a paradox, a conflict really between all these different forces. One is the regulatory nature of education itself, the fact that we are regulated, at least, especially in the elementary, secondary, and post-secondary levels. We have rules, we have guidelines. Academic dishonesty is obviously a popular term, right? With AI. And then you have on the other end, you have the adults. You have people like us trying to promote corporate training, trying to do upskilling, reskilling, and so on. And it's because of those kind of environments that we belong to, or at least have touched base with over the years, that's where the conflicts in a way originates. In our way, it originates from when we were kids ourselves. and the way we were upbrought. And I do agree, Hector, with you, the fact that it does go with experience in terms of utilizing AI. And that goes back to the theory of that personalization, right? The hyper-personalization of your own learning journey based on, and I want to say this, on your own interests, right? The things that you love to do. All right. That's where you're going to gravitate towards. You're not just going to try to learn every little which way thing. Like, for instance, I'm not going to do AI on physics. I mean, I'm not a fan. I mean, I took physics in a university, but I've never touched it since, and I'm not ever going to do so. But for someone who's a physicist, or Eric, to your credit, or Phil, you're educators, right? You know how to use the AI to your own education perspective. Mm-hmm. So I think that's what's happening right now, Hector, is we're seeing a whole bunch of I think different perspectives and factors being at play right now.
And Sabah, you just touched on a key word here, hyper-personalization. And that's another benefit that I see from this technology, because you could really curate the content. You could really tailor the methodologies, the learning artifacts. And again, I'm going to take this opportunity to say that one of the products that we're going to see later on is Starweaver's own Journey Builder, which some of you are familiar with, which is a tool that allows people to create their own personal skills maps and curate the information and the learning artifacts. So if I want to listen a podcast, or if I want to take a video, or if I want to take a quiz or do a capstone or a simulation and a role play, that will be coming in very soon to benefit people in that way. There's another question from the public, and I think that we should take it. It says, is there a way to showcase the benefits of AI as a math teacher? And before you guys reply, I think we can safely say that really AI is a benefit for anybody and every profession, but specifically for math. And I'm not very good at math. So does anybody want to take the challenge of answering that one?
I'll take it first if that's okay. So
thanks, Tom.
All right. I have taught math before, and I remember seeing a LinkedIn post. It was about, I'd say, a year and a half ago, maybe. And that person, because I think they're a bit skeptical of AI. They said, I went on ChatGPT and I tried to do some math, but the math was wrong. It didn't turn out very well. I guess AI is not going to replace me or replace an educator or whatever. So what my counter argument was to that is this: ChatGPT is never a math model. It's not an AI model for math. It's a text classification model. It generates text. That's what it was built for in the beginning. That's what it is now. Granted, does it do multimodal AI, like generating images, videos, whatever? Absolutely it does, right? It's not bad.
It does great spreadsheet work for me, by the way, Tom.
Excellent spreadsheet work too as well, yes. But when it comes to the math itself, could it be a good homework tool? Yeah, but guess what? You have to train the data. It goes back to data quality, right? What kind of data are you using to train the model in the first place? Or if we look at it from a localized, more business-centric perspective, if you're creating an AI agent, for example, and Eric, kudos, that's awesome what you did with the class there, is put all that math into an agent, and chances are, if you train it well enough, it would be a pretty good companion.
My friends, I wish we could stay here for a little bit longer, but we're down to the last 5 minutes. And I do want to use this last few minutes for each of us to say, I know it's going to be like a little bit of a cliche question, but if you could go back to yourself when you were a young 21, 22-year-old educator in the early parts of your careers, because I was starting to teach people in the corporate setting when I was 20 years old. Now, with all the benefit of your decades of experience and success, what would be the one solid piece of advice in, a minute or less that you could give your younger self, Eric, as an educator?
That's a tough one. For me, I think it would be to just always continue learning. I mean, I do that already. I think always recognizing that just because we're educators doesn't mean we should continue to be educated. And I think that's a big piece. Just continue to learn, not just new content, but about pedagogy, right?
Okay. Bill?
Eric's point, plus always remember that each learner learns in their own way. Everybody's different. You've got to meet the learner where they need to be met.
Good point.
There's no one size fits all.
Close it in, Tom.
I got to agree with my colleagues. my far more intelligent colleagues here about that.
Just
when it comes
older
Yeah,
colleagues.
You'll get
more
there,
intel-
John.
no, I got to give kudos to these gentlemen. I agree with both of them. There's nothing more for me to add there. Is everybody learns differently. I wish I knew that when I was younger, because when you go to post-secondary, obviously there were certain ways that you had to learn, and sometimes it's not the best way for you to learn, unfortunately. But over time, you kind of you reflect on it, you remember it, and then you would take that with you moving forward. So I agree with my colleagues.
Well, what I would tell my 20-year-old self who was teaching airline employees about the airline that they were going to join and everything that I've learned ever since is, dude, preparation pays off. And with that, gentlemen,
Yeah.
I want to thank you very much for your participation. It's been great to see you all. Amazing session. I wish you all a great day. And for the audience, thank you so much for your questions and your attention. And I'm going to be turning it over now to the next part of our day, which will include these product demonstrations. I hope you can stay for that. And once again, guys, thank you very much.